Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we've got your indie games covered, and today we're going to be looking at a unique indie horror called Uncanny Valley. And even though this one definitely takes some inspiration from the classic Silent Hills or even the earlier Resident Evil games, its non-linear story progression makes a pretty unique game. In this mystery exploration, half point-and-click, half horror game, you play as Tom, whose backstory is just as mysterious as the circumstances he's just found himself in. We're not really sure why he came to this secluded place or took this new job, but according to his own character, it was in order to get away from the city for a while and build up some savings, even though as the story plays out, that turns out definitely not to be the case. However, as nice as Tom's new low-profile security job might be, the demons of his past are not the only things that go bump in the night. As a security guard at a closed high-technology facility, the more you play the game, the more you uncover bits and pieces of the story. And though this is pretty similar for most story-driven or point-and-click type games, actions you take, such as which NPCs you engage with, for how long, what things you do, where you explore, and what you explore first will dramatically impact the story. And to top it all off, your 6-hour shift is condensed into about 6 minutes of game time, so you really have very little time to explore the new circumstances you've been placed in. And this limited amount of time to get to know the NPCs around you, as well as stumble over cassette tapes of some pretty interesting recordings and some certain company emails, really do a good job of heightening the tense anxiety for the player. The more you explore and the more you uncover the mysterious circumstances of this high technology facility's closing, the more intrigue the story has as it progresses. However, as I did mention before, this game has a lot of freedom and allows for a very non-linear story progression. And being able to accidentally stumble into a key point in the game very early on can cause you to come to a somewhat abrupt end. Though, as the developer does state immediately even in the game's description, this one was meant to be a quick game and most of its value is supposed to be in replay value. And I'd have to say, even though some people are throwing some serious shade on the game for being able to kind of break the game and end it fast, I actually really enjoy what the developers did here because I finished my first playthrough in under an hour. However, because I didn't really know what was going on, because I did skip large chunks of the story, I left my character being brutally maimed, and that was about how I left it. But the intrigue and the desire to know exactly what the heck was going on, and kind of the self-challenge of wanting to get a better ending, left me diving right back through the game for another full playthrough in about an hour. And even though I didn't really understand the whole story yet, and definitely didn't know what I had done wrong to get such a terrible ending, it left me with an even higher sense of anxiety trying to avoid mistakes that I wasn't sure if I had actually made. And even though I had a much better ending on my second playthrough, I'm still not sure if that's the best ending, so yeah, I'm gonna jump right back into it. But that being said, after your first or definitely after your second playthrough, the horror and fright elements kind of take a back seat to just the general suspense, which in all by itself isn't bad, but there are a couple of issues that the game still has. And among them are some small visual glitches that don't really matter all too much, but there are some game-breaking bugs that will cause your game to crash. But thanks to the autosave feature that takes place pretty often, you're never really gonna lose too much progress. But other than that, I did have to actually force restart the game at one point because my character just wouldn't move. And again, because of the autosaves, thankfully I didn't lose too much progress. Overall, I'd have to say that the game is pretty solid for a quick casual, but not because it's a horror game. There are definitely some gruesome horror elements and a few jump scares that are definitely going to get you on your first pass, but the main draw of the game is definitely the intrigue. Being able to complete the game without knowing entirely what's going on is like torture to players like me. And even though you can easily do some moderate detective work and kind of figure out what the overall backstory of the game is, you don't actually know until you actually know. So if you're into Uncanny Valley for more of the detective work or just figuring out this cool mystery, the game's going to be really enjoyable. However, anyone who's expecting Uncanny Valley to be the newest Silent Hill will be sorely disappointed because there's not a well-developed, long drawn-out sense of anxiety and fear. But that is due explicitly to the designed non-linear story. So while I definitely think the developers knew what they were doing with this one, I don't think most consumers realized what they were getting into, and that's probably the reason for some of the negative reviews. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents, and that does wrap up the review of Uncanny Valley. So if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, feel free to throw me a like or a comment to show your support. And don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. New and unique indies like this one are coming out every single day, and they're always going on sale, so there's always going to be something new to find right here. But anyway, this has been Budget Gamer, so as always, thanks for watching.